What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Today, I want to talk about the idea that spiritual awakening is not an end point. I think a lot of beginners, people who don't know any better, or people who are not familiar with the process of spiritual awakening, tend to believe that spiritual awakening, liberation, enlightenment, getting to heaven, experiencing God is like some type of endpoint, like some type of pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. And people treat it like a material object. It doesn't work. The path to spiritual awakening is not to be treated the same way as accomplishing some type of feat. It's not an object to attain. It's not an endpoint. And that's very different than the way most people operate. The usual ego, the usual identity has the sense of grasping and trying to do something, get somewhere. And that's an obstacle, that's a barrier, because we have to realize that we're already in a state of timelessness, that we are already, that liberation and spiritual awakening is already here. It's just a matter of uncovering what's in the way and releasing the blocks. It's counterintuitive. It's a little bit upside down and backwards than what we're used to, and this is not common knowledge. Most people, it's not very widespread. There's not a lot of information in the world where a lot of different places where we can get this kind of information. It's not common knowledge. It's not widely understood. And it takes a different way of approaching our experience. As I said, the usual ego way of going about things is looking towards the future or going towards the past, and it's never right here, right now, in the present moment, exactly where it needs to be, exactly in the state of timelessness. And that's what we get when we begin to understand the path to realization and spiritual awakening, that there's no end point, because there's no time. Time is just a concept, but we depend on this idea of time so much that it doesn't seem it can be any other way. It seems like when people hear this kind of information, they're skeptical, they don't believe it. And that's part of the problem. Like, it's not a matter of understanding it with the mind. It's an experiential process. We have to actually experience it, and the mind has to, I'm not saying it has to be convinced, but the mind has to kind of get out of the way. It has to peel back. It has to allow for other possibilities. It has to allow for the possibility that there is no time and that there is no end point. And it sounds preposterous. You know, people who depend on science are like, that can't be the right answer. Well, the path requires sacrifices. There's a cost and there's a price, and that price is to give up all of our ideas, all of our concepts that we've been attached to, that we've been accustomed to. The mind uses memory, and this is a very powerful tool that it uses to create a sense of identity, and that identity is the most vicious boss at the end of the level that we have to defeat before we can experience spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is not an endpoint. It's not a goal to be sought. It's an ongoing process. It continues even after we experience enlightenment. If we approach it with the attitude that we have to get somewhere, that there's a goal, it orients us away from this moment. It orients us away from timelessness. And, on the usual conventional level, people think that's normal. That's the way things have always been. It won't ever be different. It can't change. But I invite people and I propose to people that if they stay on the path long enough and continue with the process, slowly but surely, we can make progress to see that our sense of time, our sense of identity is not what we think it is. It's based on a concept, and there's many other concepts that's just one of the concepts that we're attached to, that we're accustomed to, that we depend on, that we're attached to, especially on an unconscious level. We don't think about this as we live our lives normally, but other concepts of all of our ideas of freedom, our relationships, human rights, identity, time, morality, ethics, mathematics. There's a whole list of concepts that we depend on. Relationships to objects. And we think like these are real things. We think this is, look, the human life, okay, so these are things that are important to our lives. Like I'm not trying to say we need to get rid of these things. We just need to see through them and see how they're barriers. And that's one of the misconceptions. People think that it means we have to totally give up our way of thinking. All these ideas that we've developed, evolution. We think we have to just get rid of them altogether and that's it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to leave those concepts there and we can still depend on them. We can come back to them, but temporarily we have to give up. We have to suspend our desires, suspend our attachments, suspend our fixations, suspend our dependencies on these concepts that we depend on. And then we have to suspend the need to suspend. So the practice is non-attachment, and then applying the practice of non-attachment towards the practice of non-attachment over and over again, multiple times. This is a lifelong process. It seems impossible at the beginning because it just seems like, well, what's going to end up happening? Like this can't go anywhere good. That may be true at the beginning, but if we stay with the process and we're ready and willing to do it because we've given up, because to the point where we know what we're doing now is not working, it's not ever gonna work, we can realize that that's not it. And the way to realization is peeling back. It's a releasing, a deduction, a process of deduction, a deductive process, deductive reasoning. And we peel back and we just see that that's the truth of reality. None of these concepts ever existed. Our identity never existed. It's just a concept. Our history, our memories. Now, I'm not saying, in our subjective experience that we don't have an experience of memory or experience of identity. We do, but on an objective level, if we want to see objective reality, we have to take into consideration that we're looking at objective reality through our subjectivity. And this is a very deep, long process, lifelong. We have to dedicate ourselves to it. All of our energy, all of our strength, all these distractions that we have to give them up. Like, it's very difficult to do this kind of work because we're so distracted. We have family, we have jobs, we have commitments and priorities. And I'm not saying to give them up. We have to actually, the work requires that we have these commitments and priorities to kind of see what's in the way. Like, these are barriers there that are in the way for us. And without them, we maybe won't be able to experience this spiritual awakening. But what I'm saying is that there's no end point to this. It's ongoing. It keeps going on forever because the truth of the soul is on for, and we're one with the truth of the soul. Our being, our fabric, our very identity, the makeup, the content of who and what we are is this foreverness. And we can experience this when we go on the path because we're going to be, as I said, peeling back the layers. The deductive reasoning brings us to a place of spaciousness, and we can experience this for ourselves in our own experience. When we take the path, we can see this is not it, this is not it, that's not it. The deductive process brings us to emptiness, nothingness, and it shows us how badly we're grasping onto concepts and ideas and towards the future. Well, what's going to happen next? What's this emptiness about? What's gonna happen? Where's it gonna take me? What's gonna be the end point? If we have that type of attitude, we're digging our own graves deeper. We're increasing our suffering, and we're prolonging the awakening process because we're looking towards the future. We have that attitude of grasping. We have to reverse and let go, and first just see how badly we're grasping and see how badly we're attached. It's not an easy process. It's painful. It's hurtful. We see a lot of our woundings from childhood, and there's a lot that's involved with it. It's complicated, but we have to go through it and experience that emptiness, the resulting emptiness in its entirety. And that will be the beginning. It's not the end. People, think, oh, I'm going to be dead. Yeah, it's kind of an annihilation, a cosmic death. It's like a blackness, a hole, the death of the ego. And we have to be prepared for that. I think it would be helpful to know this ahead of time for people, but I don't think many people are, that's not their goal. It's not their aim. They have other priorities, other things to do. But it's rewarding to continue on the path because it continues on forever. Once you understand it, the path, it kind of takes over your life. You live through from a higher place, a higher calling, it's a higher power. And we know that there's no end to it. And we can find this out as we live our lives now. This is what it's meant for. It's not meant to be, oh, wait till you're dead. Then you get to heaven. Then you can feel the riches. Then you can feel good enough. That's not what it's about. That's a huge mistake. It's really a disservice to humanity to do that. It's almost... I digress a little bit, but what I'm saying is the point is that spiritual awakening is not an end point. It continues on, and there's multiple awakenings often. A couple realizations here and there. You might feel might have some type of small real understanding, but there's going to be a time where there's going to be a big one, and then it's going to kind of diminish and get lower. And we have to, if we don't continue to work on it, we won't complete the path. As I said, the path is never really complete, but it's ongoing. We have to continue to practice and continue to experience realizations, as it never ends. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of spiritual awakening. And God is forever. We're forever. We're one with this. And that's the message. So the path never ends. We can continue on and on and on and experience greater realizations. It's like we could piggyback off the previous realization, and it's like a pogo stick. It keeps going, it keeps bouncing. But we have to put in the effort and continue to put in the effort. And the more effort we put in, the greater the reward will be. But we can't look at it as a reward, though. That's the tricky part about it. We just have to go on the path and do the work, and spiritual awakening happens as a side effect of following the truth. So that's my message today. Spiritual awakening never ends. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know. Leave some comments in the feedback, like my video, share with a friend, etc., etc. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent.